and say, yo, what up? How's it going, man?
Pretty good.
That is good to hear. So this is a deck doctor. If you every month we're sitting down and talking with the good people about the decks they're making, and you've brought to me Fire Tokoyami today.
Yes.
Yes. So what I want you to do is hit me with what's your idea? What's your elevator pitch for this deck as we get rocking on it?
Main goal, I guess, is a turn 2 poke and a turn 3 hopefully kill, if not turn 4.
Okay. So turn 3 poke, get a little momentum, get him a bit in the danger zone, and then turn 4 kill. It looks like we're on the fire symbol. Okay, so big question. Is this an IRL deck or is this a tabletop deck?
It's IRL.
IRL. So we got everything. We're sitting here with 4 frigid heat waves, 4 ruins, 4 ice storms.
Yeah, I have a play set of just about everything.
Look at you, money bags. Look at you. All right, just kidding. Yeah, this is one of my absolute favorite characters. I love how just a monster of aggression this guy is. So turn 2 poke, turn 3 kill. In your opinion, what do you think is the best poke card that we have inside of our attack lineup? Because like the first thing you do whenever you make decks is you got to figure out how to kill people, and that is the orange ones.
The giant ice wall is usually my poke, my go-to, and hope that the stun is enough to lock down enough foundations to get through their defense and get a little damage on them and get something in momentum.
Okay. And then Dark Shadow Talon. It's got some cool deadlock on it. Lose health for each ally in your card pool. Right swing. Ice Storm. Okay. So I love Dark Shadow Ruin. You have to run this card as Tokoyami. I think that you're actually just not given a choice. I think this is pretty much the only way that anybody gets killed as Tokoyami. So we have to play this one. I love Frigid Heatwave in this deck, especially because like 90% of our lineup is all ranged, right? We don't have ranged here. We do have ranged. So just our 4 signature right swings don't trigger the Frigid Heatwaves, which is great. Ice Storm as a 4 of is stunning for great defense as well as a good zone mix-up. Playing this at the end of a chain feels really good, especially if we do get our poke in with our giant ice wall. How do you feel about signature right swing and Dark Shadow Talon?
I mean, they're not like they don't have to be in the deck.
Mm-hmm.
Dark Shadow Talon's in there just for a chain and bringing in an additional summon Dark Shadow.
Okay. Yeah, I
was trying to throw something in with a little bit lower cost because the 5 costs for killing me.
They certainly are. You got Ice Wall, Frigid, and Ruin. My personal opinion is I don't love Dark Shadow Talon. It was in my original build, and I think if you are putting a lot of stock in the giant ice wall as like a good poke, I would go ahead and bump this card up to the 4 of and let that rock because of 2 reasons. Number 1, we already have low blocks on our attacks for Frigid Heatwave and Signature Right Swing and Talon. So we're missing high blocks on our attack lineup. We just don't have them. It's all mids and lows here. That and the fact that if we can Giant Ice Wall, poke them on turn 1, and we find another one, we give our next range attack also stun 2. And so giving Dark Shadow Ruin extra speed off of Summon Dark Shadow and make it stun 3 instead of the whatever, between Ruin and Ice Wall, we're committing 5 of their cards without making them block anything. So that's the first thing that I would think about changing. Either that, or if you do like Talon a lot, maybe we take Signature Swing down to a 2 of and pump up our giant ice walls to the max 4 of, because that also reduces our non-ranged count, but discard draws like really really good at aggro character. So it's something that I think we should maybe play around with. So that's like the first thing that I would do. I'm gonna toss this guy into the sideboard at a 2 of so that I can delete him off the main, and I would put him at a 4 as we look. So we'll keep our same 20 attacks, and then now we've changed what we got going on here. So we've got 8 mids, we do have 8 lows, and then the 4 highs. I think that's really really solid. Obviously, moving on to our assets and actions, we don't have any fire assets. For some of our shadows, we gotta have, right? How are you liking the double capture doors in the main board?
It has won me a couple of games.
Okay, expand upon that thought for me.
Uh, so turn 3, lead off with whatever. Tokoyami, bring in a summon Dark Shadow, play into Dark Shadow Ruin,
Mm-hmm.
and then capture evildoers, pitch a momentum, and pull uh, everything out except Dark Shadow. Summon Dark Shadow, leave that in my card pool,
So you're using
and
that as
I'm
the
back down.
form.
And I'm back down to a 0 progressive difficulty
I see.
to
I
to go,
see.
to go back up again.
Okay, I'm liking that, and I like it even more now that we've popped the giant ice walls up to a 4 of, just because we have more uses for this momentum, right? And we can just snap their momentum. Let's say that they in fact go first, right? So they go first, they build, I build, they swing, they get their poke in, they get their momentum. I could steal that momentum, and now I'm off to the races with a stun 5 ice wall ruin combo that could threaten. This does what? 11 damage. This does 16 damage. That kills 7-handers, right? And I'm assuming that these are not the only attacks in my hand.
Right.
So with the inclusion of Giant Ice Wall and Ice Storm at the 4 of, I love this card being at the 2. In fact, I would maybe even think about putting a 3rd, if not 4th, in like your sideboard whenever we get there. There's 1,000 cards in here now.
Yeah, that was my throw everything in the sideboard, so I've got one spot to look to see what I might want to swap around.
For sure. How do you feel about Evil Gaze?
I mean, I love the card. I just wasn't sure if it was a good fit for this. I mean, it's an action. It doesn't count towards progressive difficulty. I can bump speed. If they block it, I can destroy a foundation. So, I mean, it was kind of I might throw those in there.
I think the other reason that this card is so good, and maybe like a 1 or a 2 of, is if you've got a problem foundation, something like a fulfilled my duty, something like a you're so
Coordinated effort.
obvious, coordinated effort if you want to, not even coordinated, right? If you got one of those things that stops your summon or your Dark Shadow Ruin from happening, your Frigid Heat Wave, your
Oh, yeah, something that's going to shut me down.
correct. You could take and play this card on defense, pay your 2 health, fully block their thing, take that piece off the board, and then just try and blow them out next turn. If you don't think the Giant Ice Wall is going to be able to commit it all the way down, that's just an extra resource in order to stop them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. On to the foundation. So yeah, I'm sorry. We'll go back to actions. I would maybe think about this, but I'm not positive we'll have room for both capture evildoers and evil gaze. My suggestion would be to maybe mainboard the gazes and sideboard the capture, because this is a bit. Actually, I don't even know. Here's how I feel. Whatever number you have of capture evildoers, put that many evil gaze in the sideboard and at least try them, right? Like just try it out.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Out of the foundations, I'm gonna do it by quantity just so I can see what's going on. So 4 nervous habit, 4 backup, 4 latent skill, 4 arrogant disposition, 4 stronger darkness. I think these lineups as 4s are all great. You can maybe cut nervous habit down to a 3 of. You can maybe cut arrogant disposition down to a 3 of. I don't think you're allowed to cut stronger, latent, or calling. Those are draw cards. We just can't have it. Nervous habit I love in this deck, but it's very much, I don't want to say it's a win more card, but it certainly helps you sure up your winning. If actually, I think it's actually the definition of a classic win more card, because it's only good if you're at like above 10 health. If you are below, like if you're below 10, if you're at 9 or less, this card gets real scary if you're not just gonna kill him. Know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's there to try and put the speed over top of what they're going to be able to tap for foundations.
Yeah. Yeah.
or at least hope to try to.
Yeah. How big is our deck? Stats
65.
67 cards. I might have already accidentally messed something up when I did this. 67 cards.
Okay. Well, but yeah, that's actually what 66 with a character.
Right.
It was at 60, and then I kind of kept adding things to it, so it's ballooned up a little bit.
I don't mind a bit of a bigger deck. I don't mind that at all. I'm a classically a thick deck a thick deck player.
I wanted to run it a little bit on the thicker side because I do tend to, between Tokoyami and latent skill and signature right swing, kind of eat through the deck.
Mm-hmm.
And if it drags out to turn 4 or even possibly turn 5, not having to cycle my deck and be able to play a frigid heat wave and know that I'm going to be able to trigger my draw.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. How do you feel about because we're playing such a thick deck? How would you feel about running something like Go Beyond in the main board, like a 2 of, right? It's 2 extra copies of your Frigid Heatwave, 2 extra copies of your Dark Shadow Ruin, and if we're gonna be keeping our discard pile, around long enough, maybe it's worth going and grabbing, you know.
Go Beyond is pitch a momentum to grab a card from your discard.
Any attack from your discard pile. Yep.
It might not be bad. There's been a couple of times where I'm looking at Dark Shadow Ruin in the graveyard, and I don't have a way to I don't have one in my hand, and
yeah,
it might be good just to be able to get a Dark Shadow Ruin out of the graveyard.
Mixed with Tokoyami, being able to discard the top 5, like you can go and find things, and importantly, you also get to go and find good blocks, right? Like going and paying a momentum to go pick up this Ice Storm for a breaker 2 on my opponent's turn feels great. That feels really, really good. Yeah. Okay, back onto the foundations. We got our 3 ofs of Lineage, Fulfilled, Precise, In Danger, Cool Student. Is the other player talking named Will from Alabama? I have no idea, Barry. This is I do not know. This is Logan. Logan XL.
Yeah, no, that's probably Barry from Mississippi.
It is, yeah. It certainly is. Anyway, Heroic Lineage. Love this card. This is a card's a really easy way to respond and get a little extra damage, but more importantly, the minus speed is really good. A lot of people take and use the Tokoyami -1 damage as the thing that saves them, but like and like pretend that they have like 24 health as opposed to just 20. But I think having Heroic Lineage in order to block, it looks like it's one of your only defensive foundations. It's only at a 3 of, right? All of these cards are not that great defensive-wise, unless we're playing against a punch deck, obviously. But like Lineage being a 3 of is good. I would maybe even take and put a 4th one in the sideboard if you can find the room. Same thing with Fulfilled in My Duty. This card touching the board absolutely mollywops things like Staff Strike, you know?
Right.
Precise Control beats Shigaraki decks. How are you liking In Danger and Cool Student?
In Danger's in there mostly just for spam. Cool Student I love for when I'm stringing a long attack and I'm getting up to the point where, okay, my next check is going to be, I need an 8. And so during the previous attack, when I know I'm going to another attack and my check is going to be high, I'll enhance and throw Cool Student on top of the deck, so at least I know I'm pulling a 5.
I love that. My personal opinion is I think this card is only ever good at a 1 of on your board, and so I only ever played it as a 1 of inside of my deck. I think that trying to trigger multiple Cool Students inside of a game is so unbelievably hard. If I were to cut anything, it would probably be these Cool Students and In Danger. Personally, I think In Danger is it's just a bad card. It's a fine spam, but I think there's enough solid spam inside of the game of like Precise Control, Clever Distraction. You already have Stronger Darkness. I don't think that your deck needs another 0, personally.
Okay.
If this card said something crazy like E destroy if this attack's printed, if it gave -5 speed and not -3, I'd be in, right? But this card, it essentially says -2 speed because we're destroying a ready foundation.
Right.
Yeah, and it's so limited that its damage has to be equal to or greater than my current health. I think this card's really, really bad. If you want more speed hate, I would just play Clever Distractions over top of it.
Okay.
Up next, Irrefutable Frozen Clever Distraction. We already talked about this one, so I won't get into it. Irrefutable Force of Nature. It's a 2 of. What was the choice on cutting this down to a 2?
Card space and 2 checks on my foundations.
2 diffs. Yeah. And then Frozen. How we feel about that one?
I mean, it has not been overly useful.
Okay.
At least not in any of the games that I've played. It's never shined for me.
Totally fair. So here's where I'm at with both of these cards. Irrefutable Force of Nature means that you get to fight the long game with Kirishima, which it looks like your deck wants to do. Enhance, Commit, Seal, Coordinated Effort is such an insane exchange rate. It's so good. And it lets you actually play like a real honest game with him. Not to mention it stops things like wall cling. It stops things like sticky balls. It stops things like my opponent's own latent skills, fulfilled my duties, so on and so forth. It is such a strong disruption piece. It's the reason why I think Fire and Water are so crazy good. I think Fire and Water are really, really good at killing people. I think Chaos has an issue with killing people sometimes, but that's a conversation for a different day. And I think this is part of the reason that I'm allowed to get through their boards. And then Frozen, one of its big things, because we're wanting to play a longer game, this card gets you out of deadlock if you need to. This card gets rid of your face-down foundations, like calling for backup, like latent skill. If my opponent flips my Stronger in Darkness, this card gets rid of those face-down cards and puts them back into my deck and lets me redraw. As well as my opponent only has one more move left. They only have fulfilled my duty, and I've got Dark Shadow Ruin available. In order for me to give this thing the stun, I have to enhance on it. They'll in the enhance step, and now it's just a 5, maybe 6 damage move. Right? I want to play multiple abilities, and so destroying one of my bad committed foundations, I'll pop off.
Okay.
So I think that both of these cards should end up being 3 ofs in the deck somewhere, but genuinely, I'm not positive what to cut for it. But we are down to play a bit of a thicker deck, so we could honestly, like, we could cut the 2 cool students, put this down to a 1 of. We could cut the Endangers altogether. We could put these both up at a 1 of and bump our attack number up to 21 because that would give us to 67, 68 cards, and we want to see slightly more attacks than just the 20 and 67. I think you're going to find some dead hands, whether that is something like
That's a fact.
Dark Shadow Talon, Crow and Frog Takedown could easily just be a 4 of in this deck and just feel fine. Do you have Crow and Frog Takedown?
I do not have any Crow and Frog takedowns. I actually played my first tournament pack Saturday and got plus ultra.
Nice, congratulations.
Thanks.
As soon as we find Crow and Fog, we're jamming 4 of these in the deck, and we're not even going to care about these cards because this card just doesn't count as progressive. It's like this card doesn't even exist. It's crazy. Not to mention, if we do check bad on it, we just get to re-ready a card. Like, this is a 4 diff in our deck, and it's nuts. It's bonkers. Crazy they give 2 of the most aggressive characters a card that doesn't count as progressive. Insane. But yeah, so let's I'm gonna make some changes here on my copy, and we'll see where we end up. So 3 Nervous Habit, 4/4. I'm gonna drop you down to a 3 of and see what happens. For we're killing this card altogether. Cool Student down to a 1. You up to a 3. You up to a 3, and then we'll see what happens with our difficulties. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 16 spam? That's plenty. That's so many spam. That's great. Yeah, our only 4 ofs now are Just these three: Stronger Darkness, Latent Skill, Calling for Backup. All cards that are just gonna aggro cards or flow cards that get us there. Yeah, this feels good. You did pull a Plus Ultra.
Yeah, I did pull a Plus Ultra.
We're gonna put Plus Ultra on our main board. For sure. I think Plus Ultra is so. I think Tokoyami is one of the characters that plays Plus Ultra the best. I think that we main board probably just the one, and we could sideboard more if we absolutely want to, and that may be where we like cut our capture evildoers, right? Under fire, we don't have any throws, right? Let me go open up a new tab for Ultra.
No throws in fire yet.
Yeah. Attack my hero. Let me go just see. Instant explosive release is kind of cool. Long-lasting explosion. If I can fit long-lasting in a deck, I'm going to. Oh, it's not ranged. There's an issue. Oh, just kidding. Let's go back to the ranged word. 11 choices. Love to see it. Maybe Exploding Pride gets another high block. It's a good cheap one to play at the end. I see you have it in your sideboard. At the 2 of 22 attacks in our 65 card deck. These guys all check 5s. Let's take and toss. Where are you at? Where did you go? Clever Distraction. Let's toss this up to a 3 of just to round out our spam just a little bit more. 66 card deck with 22 attacks. With you constantly discarding cards off of Tokoyami, drawing cards off of Frigid Heatwave, drawing cards off of Signature Right Swing, drawing cards off of your latent skills, clearing your card pool from Capture Evildoers, and upping your check with Summon Dark Shadow. I think we're allowed to run a little bit heavier of an attack count. I think this is where I would give it a shot and see how it feels here, and then make some choices from there. Chat, how are you looking? We have Damsel in chat, and this guy beats me up with Tokoyami literally every day of the week. I want to say that he was saying something about self-assured, which would not be a terrible idea. Being able to commit and turn one of my opponent's moves into mid so that Ice Storm or Dark Shadow Ruin can make their breaker happen. Thank you.
Yeah, I had it in there at one point too. It's also good for its secondary effect. You can destroy it and draw a card for every 4 or 6. I can't remember what is ranged in your discard.
And we now have 12, 16, 18, so we can potentially draw 4 off of it, right? Like we could way late in the game. Self-assured is necessary to refill. You could potentially board into Todoroki with this list. You could board into Todoroki with this list. That would be kind of cool, actually. Yeah. It's super important to let Tokoyami finish his kill strings. Yeah, let's go find it. I'm gonna set this as my current deck, so that I can then go find it. And we'll put it in at a 1 of and maybe give it a shot. I haven't enjoyed that card in pretty much anything but except for Shigaraki.
Oh, I run it as a 4 of in Shigaraki. Well, yeah. Maybe it's a 3 of because it's unique.
That card's nuts. And so now we're here. 67 cards. We're back to where we were. And I think we have rounded out our spams a little bit, made some more relevant choices. Let's look at our block zones. How we looking? High, mid, low. What this means is maybe we need to sideboard a couple impact cards that are good low blocks, such as we could find room for the 4th Arrogant versus like a punch deck or a low deck. Things like Heroic Lineage versus something like Ochako or like Midnight coming out, something that's, or even the mirror match, right, for a little bit more speed hate. Dang, an Exploding Pride is going to feel really good versus those momentum heavy decks too. Really punish your opponent. Like if your opponent was playing the exact same deck as you and they like poke you twice, so their giant ice walls feel good, you Exploding Pride them. This is like a free 5 damage you're gonna get in, not including any of the stronger darknesses you have. It's red. Yeah. The last card that we kind of really didn't talk about was Go Beyond.
Right.
How are you feeling about that one?
I mean, it might not be a bad one of, just like I said, in the off chance that all my Dark Shadow Ruins are sitting in the discard pile.
Okay, then here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take this Capture Evildoers, and we're gonna drop it also down to a 1 of, and so we'll play our 4 obvious, and then we now have 7 of these actions that we get to mess around with, and then as you're playing your games, like you're playing friendlies, locals, casuals, take like bonus copies of these and throw them in the sideboard, and just take out the ones that feel unuseful in the matchups and toss them in, right? Like here's a big thing when it comes to me and playing locals. Currently, the spike deck that I have made for the Rochester event IRL, I have about 24 cards on my sideboard. Because I'm trying to find cards that are like relevant for a bunch of different matchups. Like you could even take in, and Daniel's even pointed out, you could even take and just like toss this Evil Gaze at a 1 of in the sideboard. And so you've got all of these utility cards, and then as you're playing with your deck, you can be like, man, Capture Evildoers has felt really terrible in about 60% of the matches. I shouldn't main board this card because it's too niche. But Evil Gaze has felt good every time that I play it. And so like it just gets to take its slot, right? So on and so forth. And you can do that with foundations and such too, right? Like any of these cards that we have 3 of, you could just toss the 4th one like in your deck box and be like, all right, I've got 50 cards as my sideboard, and I'm gonna be messing around with my numbers and ratios as we do stuff, as you like are getting better as a competitor, you know.
What's this? Yeah, what's your sideboard limit for tournaments?
10 cards.
10? Okay.
10. Yeah. So thoughts? Is there anything you vehemently disagree with?
No, nothing at all that I disagree with. I think it was all good input.
Okay. Cool. All right, buddy. I'm gonna drop this to you personally. We'll do this, and then all you have to do is come up here and make a copy of it like this, and then the deck is yours.
All right. Thank you much.
Oh, you're very welcome.